Hey, welcome everyone to our live stream. It's Ned from Caspio. You guys know the drill. Before I begin, let me know that you can hear me okay. I want to make sure my audio is working, and then we can begin with today's session. I'm excited for today's, loud and clear, good. I'm excited for today's live stream. I'm going to challenge myself to build a nice working application in the limited time that we have. And today's live stream will be 100% improvised. I did not rehearse anything. I just wanted to see, how much we can get done in the limited time that we have. And what we're going to do today is just take the Excel file that you see in front of you. We're going to import that into Caspio, and then we're going to build on top of that Excel file. And the functionality that I would like to have in my application is a login screen for my stakeholders to be able to log in and contribute to the Excel file online. Meaning I want them to be able to add new contacts. I want them to be able to view their own contacts using RLS. I want to be able to set an email reminder the day before the follow-up date to let me know, hey, you have an appointment coming up. I also want to create a history log table, so using a trigger. So we're going to try to cover a lot of topics in Caspio, all using no code in today's live stream. It's an ambitious goal that I have, but it's going to be a little bit fast-paced, and I apologize in advance if it sounds a little rough along the way because I've never attempted to do anything like this before. So we're just going to go at it and see how much we can get done in 1 hour. As always, the application that I develop in today's live stream will be made available for you to download in the description of the YouTube video later today. So I hope you enjoy today's live stream. If you end up having any questions for me, use the chat window to let me know. For those of you who are joining the live stream for the very first time, we usually pick a topic for Mondays at 10 a.m. California time, something related to Caspio, and we try to develop that in the live stream. And if you end up having suggestions, something you'd like to see in the live stream that pertains to Caspio and our no-code platform, let me know, and I can bring that into the live stream in the following week. Okay? They're not all improvised. Usually in my live stream, I have a before and after, so I'll give you the final look of the application, what we're going to be developing. Today, I don't have a completed app. We're just going to go at it and see what we can build. So with that said, let's dive right into it. So here's my Excel file. It's a basic tabular report that has contact-related information. And as you guys know, Excel is not really a relational database, so I can't really relate other tables to it. And imagine if you have other stakeholders and you're emailing this Excel file, and then you have that one person who needs to consolidate all the data into one spreadsheet. I think it's a very tedious process. I don't think anyone wants that job. So that's why we have an online database, so that we can log in via the web and contribute and have be able to edit the contact information in some meaningful way, and also set some workflows along the way. All right. So here's my Excel file. Let's bring that into Caspio. We're going to set up a brand new application. We're going to start by importing data, and we're going to call this application. I'm just going to use Excel as my prefix so I can find that quicker inside my account. Excel Contact Management. Okay, we're going to just locate the file. I have it in my folder. Let me just find it. Here it is. We'll hit Next. Okay, just give it a second. Here's my application container. You can see that in the background. We're going to hit Next. And now we're going to go through the steps of importing the data. So here's the name of my spreadsheet. Okay, we're going to create, let me just close that. We're going to create a brand new table, although just keep in mind you have other actions that you can perform when you import data into Caspio. You can replace existing data. You can append new data, you can update specific entries, and you can also update design of your table. I'm going to keep the name the same. We're going to hit Next, and then you're going to see the fields and the sample data that you're importing from that Excel file. Okay. Here you can also change the data type if you'd like for each one of your fields, but you can also make these changes even after you import the data. So I'm just going to quickly bring that data in by clicking on Import. It shouldn't take too long to bring that data in. Okay, so there's my confirmation message. You've imported 57 entries. We're going to close that screen. And as soon as I close the screen, it's going to take me inside the overview for that specific application. You're going to see some basic entries here, and then you're also going to be able to see some notes if you'd like to add notes for your application. So this screen here is mostly informational. But where you want to begin developing your application is always going to be the tables object. Tables are the foundation of any app that you develop in Caspio. You can have unlimited tables, and you can link all of your tables using primary keys and foreign keys using the relationship screen, which we'll get into in just a moment. So a couple of modifications I want to make to my Excel file that I imported. So we're going to hit design to be able to see all the fields along with the data types. So I would like to add a field, maybe follow-up. Okay, so we're going to call this one follow-up date. And I'm going to set the data type to date and time. Okay. Typically in this type of an application, I want to be able to see all the clients that I need to follow up with today. So we're going to include that date. Let's see. I also want to have a very important field, contact ID. In a relational database, all of your tables must have a primary key. Primary key is used to uniquely identify each row in your table. And I'm just going to move that field to the very top of my list. Let me take a look at my question. What happens to the data? How can I ensure that the data stays ours? What data privacy controls are in place? Those are great questions. I wish I had the time to go into that and explain. You can find all that information on our website as well, and I can also get in touch with you via email if you'd like. So here's my email in the chat window. If you don't mind just sending me that email with that question, I will provide you all the information that you need. But the data is yours. You can always export the data back to your local drive at any point. We don't share your data by any chance. You can also take a look at our privacy statement that we have on our website when you sign up for the trial account. But the data is yours. We don't do anything with that data once it's imported into Caspio. Okay, that's just a quick answer to your question, but I can give you more detail via email. Okay, just send me an email offline and I'll take care of that for you. All right, so we're going to set the data type for a contact ID. You can see Caspio gives us 4 different ID types that we can select. I always like to go with either random ID or GUID. It's more secure. So I'm just going to go with random ID. I'll save my table. And then here back in the data sheet tab now, you will see how every single contact in my table has a unique ID. And that ID will always just belong to that specific contact, nobody else. We also have a follow-up date. The column is empty because we just created that field, so obviously it should be empty. One more actually field that I'm going to add to this table. You can add it now or you can add it later. I'm just going to add it right now so we can have it. User ID. Remember what I said at the beginning. When my employees or my stakeholders log into the application, I want them to be able to see their own contacts. And then if you have a manager level user, they can see all the contacts because they have the highest level permissions. But my employees, I want them just to be able to see their own contacts. So we're going to apply RLS, record level security, to accomplish that. And I'm going to leave that as a text 255. And I'm just going to move that field underneath my primary key. So this will become my foreign key inside the contacts table because I'm trying to link or associate my contacts back to my users. So now we're going to build our user table next. So let me save this one. Go back to the tables menu and let's set up a brand new table. Let's call this user ID. Data type is going to be, once again, I always like to go with random ID. It's secure enough. And then let's have maybe first name of the employee. We're going to have last name. We're going to use the email to the login to the application. We're going to have a password field. And you could have maybe account login or account status so that you can control. If you no longer want that employee to log in, you can just use a simple checkbox method, Boolean, to make them active or inactive when they're logging in. For your email field, we're going to turn that into a unique field. You're never going to have 2 different users with the same email. Emails are always going to be unique. And then for the password field, you can encrypt the password. We have a special data type called password. So even if somebody goes into the data sheet tab later on, they're never going to be able to read the passwords. They're going to be completely encrypted. And you'll see in just a second what that looks like. So let's save our table. And we're going to call this also Excel, TBL for table users. Just to keep the same naming convention across all of my tables with the prefix Excel. And I'm just going to quickly add maybe 1 or 2 users into my table so that later on when we log into our application, we're going to be able to see the data. So we'll just say jd@test.com, and password can also be test. And we want to give him access to log in. So you can see how the password is fully encrypted. And if you have other employees in your organization, you can just list them in this table. We give you unlimited users, so you never have to worry about per user fee with Caspio. You can have, even if you have 10,000 or 100,000 employees, they can all log in simultaneously to access the data and make modifications. All right. I also want to have a quick lookup table so that later when I build a dropdown, I want to link to my lookup table instead of creating custom values. And the type of lookup table I want to create, if you look at my contacts table, we have a status field for lead, customer, or prospect. You can include other statuses if you'd like. I only have 3, so I'm just going to build a quick lookup table with these 3 statuses. So create a table. All right, so we want ID, and I want status. And that's all I need to list inside the table. We're going to save it. Excel, TBL, status, lookup. This is just my own naming convention. You can call this whatever you want. We're going to hit finish. Now we have 3 tables, and I'm going to list my statuses here. So we have new, we have prospect, and we have customer. I believe those are the ones that I have. Let me just double check in my other table. Sorry, it was lead, customer, and prospect. So back to my lookup table, and we are going to open it and just rename new to lead. All right, let me take a look at my question. When using this for prototyping, how does this convert into a coded full stack environment? Are there languages that work best? So you don't actually get to see any of the code in Caspio. If you're prototyping, everything is built using our point and click tools that we have. You're not actually going to see any code, and you can't really convert that into a full stack environment. Unfortunately, we host the application, but the speed of developing of the application in Caspio is really our secret sauce, which you'll see in just a moment using our point and click tools that we have and drag and drop. I'm going to be able to build these interfaces very quickly. But to convert that to your own full stack environment, that's just not possible because you don't actually get to see any of the code that's behind the scenes. However, a lot of our customers want to expand upon their applications using industry standard languages like JavaScript, HTML, SQL, CSS. You can inject those industry standard languages into our framework. And I can also touch upon that once we start building the interfaces. Just remind me later on in today's live stream, okay? And I will show you how you can inject some simple JS, HTML, CSS if you want to create more dynamic solutions. Okay. All right. Now, let me think for a second. I also want to have logs, right? When you're looking at a contact, I need to be able to manage email logs. I want to be able to manage phone conversation with that contact. So we're going to set up our for table here. And I'm just going to call this log ID. Again, data type will be a random ID. And let's see, what information do we need in this table? I need the contact ID, because I need to link my contacts to my logs. It's a one-to-many relationship because one contact can have many logs. That becomes text 255. I also want to know which one of my users is submitting that log, right? So we need to be able to track that information as well. So we have 2 foreign keys, and then we just need to track some information. So we're going to say maybe contact method. So whether that was an email conversation or a phone conversation. And we want the comment or maybe notes. For notes, I'm going to turn that into a text 64,000 for long text, because for notes, it could be a long email, or you have a descriptive, maybe phone conversation that you had and you want to log down all of your notes. And maybe date submitted, which will be once again, I'm going to choose timestamp so it automatically stamps the date and time of each submission. Okay, now can we create tables from a spreadsheet? Yes. So if you create the spreadsheet offline first in Excel, which is what I did, you can import that spreadsheet into Caspio, and that creates the table for you. In fact, you could have multiple spreadsheets in your Excel file, and if you save the document with 4 spreadsheets and you import that into Caspio, they're going to be converted into tables, and you'll see all 4 tables listed inside the import wizard. Yes, you can. Good question. So if you know the structure ahead of time, you can create all of that in Excel, and then you can bring it into Caspio. I have done that before. Okay, good question. Yeah. All right, let me save my table. Let's give it a name, Excel TBL logs. And one final table left before we move on. I did mention that I want to have a history log table. So when I make an update to my contact, I want to be able to store those updates in a separate table, also a one-to-many, right? Because I want to preserve my original entry and I want to know who's making the changes, what changes are being made, and what date and time. So all I'm going to do is make a copy of my existing table. So we're going to duplicate. And let's call this history. Let me see if I have enough space for log. I do. So table design, table and data, or design only. Or let's just go with table and data. Actually, let's just do design only. Okay, we'll do design only. We'll hit duplicate. So here's my history log table. I do need to make a few modifications to this table in the design mode. One, I'm going to add a log ID as my primary key. We're going to move that at the very top. Okay, and I'm going to use a random ID data type. Contact ID, however, now needs to be text255. It is a one-to-many to our contacts table. So if I make a change to my contacts table, I want that change to be stored in this table, and I want to stamp the contact ID so that I know what changes I'm making for what contact. We maintain the user ID field as well because I need to know which one of my users is making that change. Okay, right now I only have John Doe, but if you had multiple employees, you'll be able to see their IDs stamped in the history log table. And then we have all the information that we want to track, and I also want date updated, which will turn into a timestamp, and I want to stamp on update. Okay. So once the change is made in my contacts table, I will store all of those changes here in my history log table. We'll save it. Okay, it's just going to let me know, hey, converting contact ID from random ID to text255. Proceed. Okay, let's go back to the tables. Those are all the tables that we need to create. You can expand upon this in the future if you'd like. If you wanted to log sales or deals, you can add another table, link that back to your contacts if you'd like. Now, this is how I teach people, especially with a database application. You always want to create your tables first before you do anything else. That table structure and foundation is critical to everything else that you do inside your application. Okay? Let me take a look at my question. How is IP assignment handled? What protects our IP? Will there be an IP assignment in the agreement? All excellent questions, okay? I don't want to get into the BAA and all of that non-disclosure and all of that stuff on this live stream. So if you can do me a favor, I will get you all the answers, okay? I will definitely get you all the answers. Just send me that email with all the questions you have, and I will be in touch with you today, okay? It's just going to require me to deviate from the live session today because I have a lofty goal to create all of this, and I just don't want to deviate too much from what we're doing right now. Okay? So I apologize, but I promise I will get you all the answers. Okay? Okay, let me see. Even though Caspio allows unlimited table, but the number of records have limits depending on your plan. Is this true? Yes. So I believe it's like 50,000 entries on the free plan or the entry-level plan, but you have to think about it this way as well. One record is equivalent to one-page Word document. So that's a lot of text. Okay, if I'm looking at a table like this that has my contacts, and I'm just looking at the single row, that's equivalent to maybe 1/50th of an actual record. Okay, so one record, one entire record that we call records, is actually one-page Word document, that much text. So it might be more than 50,000, depending on what kind of data you're storing. Okay. Let me take a look at my macros. Sheet can run on this. So you cannot do macros, but you can do formulas. We're not going to get into formulas today, but you have the ability to add a data type called formula. I'm just going to show you a quick example. Let's say I want to concatenate my first and last name together into a full name. And I'm going to move this up underneath my last name. we have a data type called formula, and then when you click edit, you will see different functions that you can inject into the formula. You can also do some basic case statements here if you'd like for SQL. But if I wanted to combine my first and last name, I will just use my parameter insert button, and I'll grab my first name. And then to create the space, a little bit of syntax is needed here. So we'll just do 1 and plus sign. And we provide all this information on our website as well, so you don't have to know how to code this in. But again, as I mentioned, any basic operational mathematical functions will work. You can do a times attribute, you can do plus, minus sign. I've used date parameters here as well to calculate date difference, text for string manipulation if you want to grab a certain number of characters on a value. All of that is built into here. And then if you know how to code in some basic JS, you can do even more stuff. But yeah, with an online database, it's a little bit different than Excel spreadsheet. But another good question. Can we work with APIs? Yes, we have a REST API that you can use. You can also use our built-in Zapier connection to connect to other applications as well. All right, I'm just going to hit apply. We might as well add that full name into our table, and let's save it. Now, here's what I recommend next. So when you've created all of your tables, you go into relationships. And for those of you who have a database background, this will look very familiar to you. So you have your tables inside your application. You can include all of your tables to the right. So by checking on that box. So we have contacts, we have the history table, we have the logs table. I don't really need to include my lookup table for status. So we're going to keep that out. You can move these tables however you want, place them anywhere you want. It's completely up to you. And now to make the connection between the tables, you simply just have to drag and drop. So you take the user ID field. I want to link that to my table of contacts. So you drag this line over to the user ID field. You let go. Caspio is going to identify that for you as a one-to-many. We're going to hit create. And you're going to see that line between your two tables, meaning one user can be linked to many contacts. We also know that one contact can have many logs. So we just link the contact ID to our other table. Also a one-to-many. You do have some options and settings here that you can enable. I'm not going to get into that because we don't have the time. But you can also enforce referential integrity between your parent and child tables, meaning that if you try to delete a child record and that child record is linked to a parent record, it's not going to let you because you're enforcing referential integrity between those two tables. I reversed the order there. I apologize. If you try to delete a parent record, and that entry has child records, it's not going to let you because you have records in the other table. Okay, we're going to hit create. And then finally, we have the history log table. So here you can just move over the contact ID field like that. It's one-to-many. And you can also join the user ID here as well. Okay, simple relationship. I have seen the screen look like a giant spider web. You could have 15 tables, 25 tables, 50 tables. And I always recommend you come to this screen so you can understand your schema and how all of your tables are linked with primary keys and foreign keys. Okay, I can save my layout. Next step, views. I now need to create my a view that's going to filter my active employees. Remember how we created that checkbox, yes or no, to filter out active versus inactive employees? I'm going to use the view, which is really just a virtual table, essentially, that allows me to filter my data from my actual tables. So here's the user table. We're going to move that to the right. And I'm just going to give this view a name. We're going to call this Excel filter active employees. We're going to hit next. And then using the criteria tab, you can drag these elements into your canvas. So if I drag this one here, I'm going to select the field account login, and I want that to be checked. Now, the view is only going to filter my employees who are active inside my table. So I'm going to hit finish, and you will see John Doe listed inside my view. Okay, not really sure what happened there. I apologize. The account that I'm on is just for the employee accounts. That's why sometimes when they're doing their testing, they do that. The customer accounts are never affected like this. It's just our own personal accounts that we have. which I should have given him a heads up that I'm doing a demo today. So again, hopefully this won't take too long. Again, I apologize. It's my own account. Like I said, the customer accounts will not be affected by any of these messages. I sincerely apologize. Please don't go. I'm going to see if I can resolve this very quickly for us. Bear with me just for 1 second, okay? Really, really apologize. Let's just... All right, so we're back inside. Let's see, Excel contact management. We're back inside the view. Filter. And we should be able to see that John Doe listed, right? All right, so I want to show you how the view is filtering based on active or inactive checkbox. So if I go back to my user table and I add one more, let's come back here and let's just add maybe Sally Smith SL at test.com, password test, and we're going to make Sally be an inactive employee, meaning I'm not going to check the box. If I go back to my view, which is filtering anyone that's active, you're not going to be able to see Sally listed. Okay? The final step, before we get into the fun stuff, which is building all the forms and reports, is to set up our authentication. Authentication is simply the login screen that you will see on the web that allows your employees to log in to view all of the interfaces. Okay, so we're going to set that up. And for my data source, I'm going to use the view that we just created that's filtering all of my active employees. Okay, we're going to use a custom setup. You can do Express if you'd like for a quick email and password login screen. I always prefer using custom because I get more customization options. So I'm going to use a standard table or view for today's live stream. My two login fields are email and password. I'm just going to rename my label to say email. It's a little bit more clear. And then you can add other elements into your login screen if you'd like. So you can add additional authentication fields. By default, it's set up as 2 fields, but if you want to have maybe a PIN number or add your name as well, you can have another layer of field for the login screen. You can also add HTML blocks, even header and footers. If I add my header above my login screen, I can have a nice heading that says employee login. I can highlight my text. I can use the toolbar to make changes to it, maybe make that a little bit bigger as well. Now, if you do know how to code in HTML and CSS, you can go into the Advanced tab, or you can click on the Source button, and here you can drop your own HTML and inline CSS if you'd like. You can also reference an external CSS if you want to supersede our own styling in Caspio with your own cascading style sheets. Okay, very flexible in terms of aesthetics and how you go about the look and feel. Okay, we're going to hit Create. And we're going to call this Excel Employee Login. All right, now let's go into building all the forms and reports for the web. And to do that, we're going to navigate to Data Pages. And don't be confused by the term Data Pages. It's a Caspio term. Personally, I like to call them widgets. Because when you build a data page or a widget, we're going to give you a little bit of code. And all you got to do is copy and paste that code into your website. And you're going to be able to see how our interfaces seamlessly embed into your own web pages. And Caspio is compatible with any website builder today. So if you're using WordPress, if you're using Weebly, if you're using Webflow, Squarespace, you name it, our code will work seamlessly with any one of these CMS providers. All right, so to begin, let's launch our point-and-click data page wizard. So here are all the different types of interfaces that you can create. You can build input forms to add data into your database. You can build update forms and even password recovery. Very helpful if the employee is trying to log in, but they've misplaced a password. They don't have to contact you each time. They can just reset their own password via email and once again be able to log in. We can build different reports. Reports are used to output the data on the web. So we can do tabular, we can do pivot tables. If I were to give you a quick example, I have a couple of applications saved here that I can show you. Let's take a look at my sales CRM demo that I use. So here's a Caspio login screen. Once I log in as my sample user, you'll see a filtering capability. You'll see Caspio charts. You'll even see a Caspio pivot table that shows all the data in aggregate. So if you wanted to create a pivot table, you would select this option here and just click next a few times until you've developed that pivot table. You can build calendars. Calendars are a great way to, plot appointments or events on a calendar if you'd like. You can create charts. We looked at a few charts here in my example. We have pie charts, bar charts, combination charts, area charts, line charts that you can customize, and you can see how many different options you have. Great way to see your KPIs and metrics and to visually interpret all of your data from your database. And finally, if you're a little bit more tech savvy, you can build some HTML data pages as well. Let's begin by creating a report that allows me to see all of my contacts with the follow-up date set for today. Okay, so we're going to set up a tabular report. We're going to hit next, and I need to base off of my contacts table. And let's call this follow-up today. Style is all about the aesthetics, right? So the look and feel of your reports and forms. We give you some preloaded styles that you can choose from, but you can fully customize your own style by going to this object here. So you can change the color of the labels, color of the fields, color of the buttons, anything to match the look and feel of your own brand and your organization colors. I'm going to go with this one called blue. And then for my localization, I'm going to just pick English. And I need to restrict access to my employee login, which is what we created inside this object. Because I need my employees to log in order to view the data. So we have to apply the authentication. We're going to hit next. I'm going to show you how to build a search form in just a few minutes. But for this report, I only want to filter my data with the follow-up date set for today. So that's going to be my criteria. And I also want to enable record level security so that each user only sees the contacts that belong to their unique ID. Okay, I don't want them to see all the contacts. You can create it like that if you like, if that's the scope of your solution, but we're not going to do that in the live stream today. We're going to set our RLS to user ID. We're going to hit next. And for my filtering field, I want to use the follow-up date. You can have other filtering fields if you'd like. Maybe you want to have status as well. Only show me the leads with the follow-up date set for today. But we're going to keep it simple. We're going to hit next. And then for the follow-up date, I want to basically say today. Only show me the data with the follow-up date set for today so that I know those are my action required items and I need to clear those out before I go home for my workday. We're going to hit next. Now, what information do you want to display on the results page? So on the results page, maybe we want to include the full name of the contact. Let's have title, company name, phone, email, address. We can keep all this information in the details view. Let's have status. You can have date created and maybe the follow-up date as well. We're going to hit next. Now, let's say you want your end user, your employee, to be able to edit the data directly on the results page, maybe with some kind of inline edit capability. Say I want to set the follow-up date a couple of days from today. Okay, so let's enable inline edit. You can also do inline delete if you want your employees to be able to delete those contacts. I don't recommend it. I think admin level users should have those types of permissions. We're going to hit next. And now on the results page, you can click on follow-up date here. If you click on the editing tab, allow the field to be editable, and you can make that field required if you'd like for them to always have a follow-up date. We're going to hit next. One thing that I'm going to show you in the results page is how to create a details link. So when I go to the details of the contact, on that details page, I can have all the related information from other tables as a one-to-many setup. So we're going to add an HTML block here in the results page. And I'm going to show you how to create a very simple hyperlink in Caspio. And you can call this details, highlight your text, and click on the link button up here. And we'll come back to this screen later on. I'm just going to add a hashtag here for now, just so I can have a placeholder link. All right, so when I click on that details later on, I'm going to be able to see all the details for my contact. We're going to hit next. We can sort data here if we'd like. I'm just going to hit next. And let's not have a details page that's built into the platform. We're going to create a custom details page a little bit later. So let's hit finish now. And let's deploy this data page. To deploy the data page, we hit on the link, we enable deployment status, and we're going to grab the embed code. If you don't have a website, if you don't want to build a website, you can still publish our data pages using a direct URL link. Okay, but my recommendation is always to go with embed. It's a little bit more nicer because it's part of your own organization's website. We're going to grab the snippet of code from Caspio. Let me close that. And I would like to be able to publish that report right over here on this page called Dashboard. Follow up today. Now, my background is front-end development, so I have a good understanding of HTML and CSS and JS. So I'm comfortable working inside the HTML code. But as I mentioned, if you know WordPress, if you know Webflow, you can embed that code into any one of those CMS providers, which has more of a drag and drop functionality. So my placeholder is here where you see the letters DP. I'm just going to paste my Caspio deploy code and hit save. Okay. Once I refresh my page, you're going to see no records. Well, first you're going to see the login screen because we applied that login screen on top of our data page, right? But before I can log in, I need to publish my page to the web. So I'm going to use my FTP client that I have, which is WinSCP. And I'm just going to move that Excel folder that I have on my desktop. And I'm just going to move that over to Caspio's hosting. Just give it a second. And now we're going to go live. So sumapp.com np excel index.html. That's where it's hosted. And now I can log in as John Doe and be able to see that report. So let's try it. Remember Sally Smith? Was it Sally Smith that we added to our table? Because she's inactive. So let me open up my table here really quickly of users so we can see. Sally Smith sl@test.com. So if I try to log in as Sally Smith sl@test.com, password was test, it's not going to let me because she's not an active user, right? But if I log in as jd@test.com, he is an active user. I should be able to log in and you'll see no records found. The reason why you see no records found, if I go to my contacts table now, I'll just open up in a new tab. What you're seeing now is that we haven't really linked any of our users to our contacts and our follow-up date is empty. Okay. I should have actually set this to date and time data type. Oh, I did. There's my little calendar picker. So let's just say for Oscar, Man, and Megan, we're going to set this follow-up date to be today, which is December 12th. And for the second one, all right. That's still not enough. I'm still not going to be able to see that information on the web because these two contacts are not linked to John Doe. So if I go to my user table and we copy John's primary key and we paste that here in my contacts table, by the way, I'm doing this manually. As you can see, table to table, that's not best practice. Best practice is to create the data page for an admin level user, and we can do a bulk edit, and then we can use a dropdown to select the name and assign these contacts quickly to each one of our users. Okay, what you're seeing right now is just back-end stuff that I'm doing manually, just so I can show you an example of how now when I log in as John Doe and I refresh that data page, I'm going to be able to see both of those contacts. Okay. Sorry, I add something else over my live stream chat. Let me take a look. In the real world, most companies do MS IDAP user authentication. No. Identity provider. Yeah, so we do have the capability for identity providers. If the organization is using Okta or Microsoft Active Directory, I'm not going to get into that today, but that's a standard feature in Caspio. So in directories, you could, really quickly here, I'm just going to show you what I have. So if you want to link your identity provider to Caspio, you have that capability. So you can bring in, see, this is the information you get from Caspio. So if you're using, let's say, Azure AD for Microsoft, you can plug that information into Azure AD. You can get your certificate back from Azure, and you can plug that here into the screen. And then you can link this directory back to your data pages to allow your employees from that directory to log in to your Caspio applications. Great question. I don't know if that was the question, but hopefully that answers it. Okay. And we have videos in our knowledge base to teach you how to set this up very quickly. It's fairly straightforward process to do that integration. All right, we're short on time here, so let's get back into our builder. data pages. And now you can see how on the web, when I log in as John Doe, I'm able to see those contacts that belong to me. And if I want to change the follow-up date, I can do an inline edit, and I can set the follow-up date to some other date in the future. Okay. All right, what's next? Why don't we, just for fun, why don't we build a chart that shows me contacts by month? Okay, we'll do a line chart that's just going to display how many contacts I'm working with by month. Granted, I don't have a lot of data here, so it's not going to look that good, but if I were to build a quick chart, so we're going to launch our data page wizard. Once again, we're going to go down to charts, and let's set up our line chart, just so you can see that as well. Based off of the contacts table, that's our main table. We're going to call this contacts by month. I'm going to use the same style blue and same localization English. And of course, we need to restrict access to our employees. Again, we're not going to build a search form right now. We're going to filter our data, set the RLS to user ID to user ID, hit next. Do we want to filter? I guess if you're building that chart for the dashboard page, you also want to filter based on today's date. So why don't we filter based on the status, so you can see that as well. We're going to do, actually, it's probably better just to do a pie chart. I want to show you a breakdown by status. That would be helpful. So let's just do based on status. And you could do follow-up date today as well, since we're going to deploy this data page on the dashboard view. So for status, sorry, I apologize. Status is going to be included on the chart itself. We don't need to actually display that as a filtering field. But the follow-up date, I only want to show for today. So that's correct. And then on the setup screen, we want to have the category be set to status. And for value, we can just do a simple count on any one of your fields, because that's the data that you have in the table. We're going to do a simple count. And let's just do a number. We don't need to see percentage, although you could display the data on a chart as a percentage as well. Okay, hit next. Not going to make any changes here. Let's just hit finish. And here's our second data page that we're going to deploy. Grab our deploy code. And then here in my notepad, we're going to just paste that underneath maybe the report that we just deployed. So now we have two different data pages embedded in a single web page. Right? So if I push this live now, let's go back to my client that I use, Excel, and let's come back here and let's just update the index page. And let's refresh. And now you're going to be able to see the chart directly underneath that report as well, which is the pie chart. And we have one lead and we have one customer. How you organize these data pages, to me, that's where the fun begins. You know, you can position them in the upper left corner, upper right corner, depending on your taste and how you want your data to be presented. But we have two records here, and you can see how they're both displayed here on my chart. The charts are interactive, so you can click inside a legend to show and hide elements if you'd like in real time. Okay, next. Let's have the ability to add a new contact. Okay, so we're going to come back to our data pages, build a new one. And this time, I want to create a submission form. Very simple. We're going to hit next. Based off of the contacts table, let's call this add new contact. Once again, oops, blue style, localization English, restrict access, hit next. And now it's going to ask me, what fields do you want to use in your web form? When I build my application, I usually just move them all initially to the right. And then on the next screen, I can remove them one by one if I don't have a need for that field. Because in most cases, I will more than likely have a need for all of the fields. User ID. So this field here is very important. This is the foreign key inside the contacts table. When my employee makes a submission, I want to stamp that employee's user ID into the contacts table. So we're going to make this field hidden, because that doesn't need to be displayed on my web form. We're going to make that field hidden, and we're going to use the authentication method to stamp the user's ID into the contacts table. So if I'm logged in as John Doe, if I'm logged in as Sally Smith, depending on who I'm logged in as, once I make that submission, it's going to stamp my user ID into the contacts table. And then we have all the other fields. So first name, maybe that's a required field. Last name can be a required field. Title, company, address, city, state. For status, now usually for status, if I'm making a new submission, my personal preference is to make the field hidden, and by default, I will set this as a lead because it's a brand new lead that I'm adding to the database. Okay. However, if you would like, you can turn this into a dropdown. You can see other elements that we can select as well when it comes to configuring each field. I'm going to select this to be a dropdown. You can add your own custom values, but remember what I said at the very beginning of our live stream. We created a lookup table that contains all the statuses for us: lead, prospect, and customer. So instead of doing custom values, we can do both custom values and lookup table. The reason why I like to do both is because for custom value, I want to say select status. Make sure you delete the value. You don't want this to be stored in your contacts table. That needs to be null entry or empty. And then for lookup table, simply just look to your table that has the statuses and just leave it the way it is. Okay. Then we have date created. So this can be a timestamp and follow-up date. So even from this screen, you can make this field required. If you want to have a follow-up with that client, you can add that. So let's go ahead and I think from here we can just click finish to save. I don't need to make any changes, additional changes. So let's save our form. Let's deploy the code, grab our embed code, and then in my notepad, I have a page dedicated for that form, which is called add contact. And I'm just going to go ahead and paste my code, save it. And we just need to push that live now. So let me just reload here. And my add contact, which now contains my deploy code, I'm going to make that live. So when I go to my page, let me just reload. When I go to my page to add contact, I should be able to see that form now. Okay. Simple as that. So if I now make this submission, let's just test this out to make sure that it's working. So let's say as John Doe, I add a new contact. We're going to say Sam Baker. We're going to say title CEO, company Yahoo. None of these fields are really required. We don't have to go through all the steps of filling this out. So let's just say this is going to be a lead. Follow-up date can be, I want to set this for today so that we can see it on the dashboard view. If I set this to tomorrow, I'm not going to be able to see it because we're filtering based on today. So we're going to say the 12th, we're going to hit submit. And now when I go to my dashboard, I should be able to see Sam Baker, follow-up date, which is today. And now you get to see the breakdown here. Oh, that's a good question, Luke. It's almost like you know Caspio. So the question is there a possibility of showing both percent and number on the pie chart? Unfortunately, there isn't. In this case, you'd have to set up two different charts. Our team is working on that capability to have it be, to display both, but now it's just one or the other. Good question there. But yeah, I've in the past, I've set up both charts. One to show percentage and one to show the number itself. Okay. Let's create a data page that allows us to manage all of our contacts with some search capability. Okay, so we'll come back here. There's a shortcut here. If the data page that you're about to create is similar to this one that you're seeing here, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to build that whole thing over again. What you can do is simply make a copy of your existing one, which is this one here. So we're just going to make a copy of it. And we're going to call this Manage Contacts. Save. But we do need to make some modifications to it. So we're going to hit Edit. So this is all set up for me already. We're going to hit Next. All of this is already set up for me because I made a copy of it. We're going to hit Next. But now, instead of filtering data, I want the search capability so that as the employee, if I'm trying to find my contact by the first name or last name, I have that ability to do that. I want the results to show up underneath the search form, and I want to display my results on the initial load. Meaning, when I go to this page, not only do I want to see the search interface, I also want to load my data directly underneath the form. Okay? So that's what this checkbox basically means. Let's hit Next. All right, what fields do you wish to use in the search form? So let's search based on first name, last name, maybe title. It's up to you. You know, you can search based on phone number field, email field. You can even search based on the follow-up date if you'd like. Completely up to you. And status would typically be important to have as well. Okay, so these are my search fields. We have to configure the properties of each one of our search fields. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to show you a couple of options here for comparison type. If you leave it as equal for first name, If you leave it as equal, which I don't recommend, you have to type out the exact first name that you're looking for in order to find that contact. We have something called contains, which is more like keyword search. So if you type in a letter, let's say T, and you hit search, it's going to return all the first names that contain that letter T. So it's giving you a more broader results range. You could also do something like Google search. You can also do drop downs here, list boxes for multi-select if you'd like, or my personal preference usually is to go with autocomplete and to select contains. So autocomplete is like Google search. If you type in a letter, it's going to give you options underneath that field of what's available in your table. And as you begin typing, it's going to remove other options along the way. So I'm going to show you this one time. For the rest of these, we're going to just use contains just to speed up on time. Let me just check. It's 10:50, so we're making good progress. This is going to be one of the last data pages that we have to create. Follow update. For follow update, why don't we do a date range so you can see that as well? So we're going to insert what we call new criteria directly underneath the follow update, which creates 2 additional fields for us. Set the logical operator to end because we want criteria 1, which is follow update from, and we're going to set this to be greater than or equal to. And criteria 2, which will be in my label, we'll just say 2 here. Did I set from here? I did. From and 2. And this will be less than or equal to. So this is how in Caspio we create a date range on the search form. And then for status, well, for status, we can do a drop down. Once again, I'm going to show you a list box. So let's say you want to filter lead and prospect at the same time, not just one or the other. So why don't we select list box? Okay. We're going to use lookup table. Let's do both. Search all. Delete the value because you're trying to return all the statuses, and then lookup table, we link back to our status. Now to do a multi-select, we go to the advanced tab and we simply just say allow for multi-select. Rows to display, by default it's 5. I only have 3 statuses, including that custom value, so we're going to say 4, so it's a little bit more cleaner. Okay. And from here I can just hit preview to see what I have before I even save my changes. Let me just take a look at my preview to see what it looks like. Okay, that looks pretty good. However, you can see this wasted space here. So what I'd recommend, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 8 columns. So I would typically go to my section up here and just say number of columns to be 8. And I want the label position to be on top. So if I hit preview now, we're gonna maximize on that space. But now, because I have so many fields, you can see how my report is stretched out. So if I see something like that, I will just change the field width. Like for example, like the date field. There's no reason for me to have all this space, next to my date. That's just empty, wasted space. So the way we control that in Caspio, let's say for the date field, we have characters, and you can change the number of characters. You can measure that in pixels or percent. So if I do, let's say pixels maybe 100, criteria 2 will also be pixels 100. Let me hit preview now before I save my changes. Okay, so it's a little bit smaller. Okay, so it's just kind of going back and forth a little bit until you find the exact width that you want. You can also change the width for these fields. Also, everything in Caspio is responsive. By default, you don't have to worry about that. So if you change the width of the browser, you can see how everything changes to fit the window of the screen. So don't worry about if you deploy this on a responsive template. It's all going to work automatically for you. I'm okay with this. I know it doesn't look very good. Trust me. Anything in Caspio, when it comes to the aesthetics, the look and feel, if you're meticulous like I am, you can change everything the way you want. You can make it look the way you want. It's really that customizable and flexible in terms of design. Okay, I could put this search button to the right of my fields. I can do anything I want. Okay, and just to give you that example that I was showing you earlier, if you really push the limits of the platform, you can make it look so nice that the end user has no idea that you're using Caspio behind the scenes once everything is deployed. All right, let's see. Do I want to make any changes to my results page? I don't think so. I'm okay with this. So let's just hit finish. How does this work with something calculation heavy fintech? You're going to have to give me an example in terms of calculations because we have aggregations, we have pivot tables, we have calculated fields. I've done calculators, different types of calculators, just to show you an example of a web form that I show to people. Calculator. I'm going to show you an order form first. So let's say you're building a customer order form, and then you want to select the part name. That's the unit price. We want 20 of these. It does the calculation for me. You can do tax. You can also connect a payment gateway through PayPal or Stripe if you monetize. If you want to monetize via your applications, you can add additional rows. So this is all built on Caspio with the calculations on the front end. And I'll show you one more example with real estate, because one of the customers had this idea for their application to show me the monthly payment of my mortgage and total interest that I need to pay over time. So if you're buying a house, let's say $650,000 over 30 years, and today's astronomically high interest rates, let's just say 8.5%, your first payment can begin today. It calculates your monthly payment and also total interest paid over 30 years. So if you do a show amortization schedule, it's going to give you a tabular report with all of your payments broken down across 30 years with the principal amount, payment amount, total interest, and your balance left that needs to be paid off. Okay, so here's an example of somewhat of a complicated calculation if you'd like to do something like that. I don't know if that's something that is close to the calculation you're hoping to see, but there are different ways of doing calculations in Caspio, just depending on kind of data you're working with. All right, let's deploy this one, manage contacts. We're going to grab our embed code, copy it, and then come over here to this page, manage contacts, and just paste my code. Very simple, copy, paste, and just push that page to my web. So manage contacts, and let's take a look at it. Yeah, let's refresh. Oh boy, yeah, that's not looking too good, huh? So instead of, obviously I don't have a lot of space inside this container. So two ways to go about that. You can also change the width of your container if you'd like, which I don't recommend. I don't like wide web templates. I would end up probably changing the look of my fields. So I would either change the field width to bring this back in, or I would change the number of columns from, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 columns. Yeah, so let me just do that very quickly so you can see. I'm going to edit, hit next, and just for fun, let's just change the number of columns to 5. Refresh. Okay, I'm okay with that. It doesn't look that great, but again, I'm okay with that. Okay, how much time do we have? How much time do you guys have? I know I still have a few more data pages to build. We're reaching that 1 hour limit that we usually have. I will need another 20 minutes to show you everything. So if I get at least one person in the live stream to say, yes, I want to continue, I will build the remaining data pages. Okay. If I can just get one response, I know that people have to go, because we usually allocate 1 hour, but with me explaining things, usually takes a little bit longer. Okay, great. So let's continue. When I click on this link, I want to go to this contacts details. But in the process, when I click on the link, I'm going to have to pass the contacts ID in the URL as a parameter in order for, on the details page, for me just to see the information that belongs to that contact. Okay? Okay, thank you for the feedback. I appreciate it. So let's go ahead and you can see in my website template, I have created a page called Contact Details where I plan on embedding additional Caspio data pages. Let me just remove this one. This is a placeholder. Okay. So what we need to do is go back to this data page and edit our HTML block. So inside the data page, which is, well, let's go for Manage Contacts. We would have to do the same thing for our report that shows all the data that follow-up set for today. But for now, let's go to Manage Contacts, to our HTML block. And here what we're going to do is go into the source. And just a little bit of customization is needed here in order to pass that parameter inside the URL, which is an industry standard technique. This is not a Caspio thing, okay? Just so you guys know. I always like to grab my full URL, so I'm just going to copy the entire URL. Paste that here, and instead of going to Manage Contacts, my page is called Contact Details, Because when I click on that link, I want to go to this page, but in the process, I want to pass the ID inside the URL. So we're going to add a question mark to initiate the protocol. And I need to pass the contact ID, so I'm going to set this to CID. This will become my parameter name. Okay, CID, which stands for contact ID. I always like to abbreviate my parameter names. We're going to add our equal sign. And finally, we're going to insert the contact ID as a string. So we're going to pass that value to that page. You can pass multiple parameters if you'd like. You just need to add an ampersand here and repeat the steps. But we're just going to pass the contact ID. Hit finish. And I'm just going to show you what happens now when I reload my page. So Oscar has a unique ID. When I hover over this link, if you look in the bottom left-hand corner of my screen, at the very end, you'll see CID equals and then the ID that belongs to Oscar. If I go to Megan, you will see Megan's ID. If I go to Sam, you'll see Sam's ID. So as soon as I click on that link, it's going to take me to contact details, but now I have passed that ID inside the URL. And now we can link other data pages to that contact ID and display information that only belongs to that specific contact ID. So the first thing that I'm going to create is the ability to edit the contact's details. So data page, reports, let's go with a custom details page. Hit next based on the contacts table, and we're going to call this contact details. I'm going to use the same style, blue, same localization, English, restrict access to our employees, hit next. And I want to be able to display the contact's details using a predefined criteria, which is the contact ID that we passed from the contacts page. Okay, so record level security, user ID to user ID, hit next. And now I need to receive the ID. So my filtering field needs to be the contact ID. And just a simple setup here in the advanced tab, you want to receive the value or parameter externally, because we passed the external parameter in the URL. External parameters are the ones that you pass in the URL, okay? And my parameter name is called CID. So that needs to match, and value must be required. The reason why value has to be required, when you pass that contact ID in the URL, in order for you to see the details of that contact, that value that you passed must be required in order for you to see the contact's detail for security reasons, okay? And then now we're going to set this up how we normally do. So in the details page, maybe we want to display the first name, last name, title, company, phone, email, address, city, state, zip. You could probably have a lot of fields here. Date created, follow-up date. Okay, we're going to hit next. And now it's up to you, because by default, all of your fields are going to be display only. Do I want my employee to have the ability to edit any of this information? Yes. I think it's fair to say I want my John Doe to be able to edit the first name. I want him to be able to edit the last name. You're likely going to make these fields required because you don't want them to leave that empty. Okay. I'm not going to do all of them, but let's say we have the ability to change the status. Again, you can do a drop down here, lookup table, select your lookup table so you can quickly change the status. You should also have the ability to change the follow-up date. Okay. And for date created, we can maybe move this to the top, and this is probably going to be display only. I don't want my employee to change the date created. Okay, we don't want that. Okay. All right, I think I'm okay with that. Again, just go through all of your fields if you want to make additional changes. I'm just going to hit finish and save. And let's deploy that. Grab our embed code, and we're going to copy and paste that into our contact details page right over here. Save. And let's push it live. Contact details. And just like that, we're going to refresh. And now we're going to be able to see Oscar's information. Because I pass Oscar's ID in the URL, I receive the ID inside the data page. And because I received that ID, I'm able to see Oscar's information. Now let's create the report really quickly that's going to display all of the logs that belong to Oscar's ID. Okay, so we're going to build a brand new data page. Reports. And when it comes to logs, I recommend that you use list data page because it's very beneficial when it comes to long text. Tabular reports are really just the summary of your data if you have like a 1 or 2 word answer. Tabular report is good because if I add my notes inside a column cell, it's not going to look good. Okay, it will look disproportionate with all the other cells. So I recommend list layout. Okay, so this needs to be based off of our logs table. And let's call this view logs. Again, I'm going to use the blue style, same localization of English, restrict access, and hit next. Filter, very important. Okay, you only want to filter the logs that belong to the ID that you just passed in the URL. So we filter based on predefined, record level security, user ID to user ID. We're going to hit next. And we want to filter based on the contact ID. And it's the same exact setup. In the advanced tab, you're going to receive the value, which was CID, that's the parameter name. Value required. I know you guys have questions, and I will get to all of your questions in just a second, but I want to get through all the content. I want to show you the task that I planned on creating, and I want to show you the trigger for the history log table. But this is all simple. Once you really learn how to use the platform and you remember how to navigate the data pages, you can build any application within a couple of hours, no more than a few days. And that's the power of the development with our point and click tool that we have. So now, what information do I want to display on the results page? Well, we definitely want to know who submitted the log, which one of our employees. Actually, in this case, we don't need to display that because our employees only see their own contacts. That's the way I set up my application. I should have done this application a little bit differently where employees can see other contacts. I think that's more common in a CRM, now that I think about it. I could make that change, but let's not do that because obviously I want to be able to see which sales reps or which other reps are submitting comments for each contact, right? That's okay. Just note that's possible in Caspio, okay? We're going to have contact method, notes, and date submitted. I'm not going to edit any information. Let's keep that the way it is. I'm not going to make any changes to my logs results page. Let's keep that the way it is. Let's display 24 at a time, and I want the most recent log to appear first. Okay, so we're going to sort that, and no need for a details page, and let's just click finish. All right, so let's deploy the view logs report. We're going to embed this now underneath our contact details. So here's my contact details, and I want that to appear directly underneath. Save. Let's push that live, same as before. Come back here. Reload, and you'll see no records found because obviously there are no records to be found for that specific contact. Now, we need to build a form that allows us to add that log. And there are a lot of different ways in how you can embed that form into your website. I could have a button here, maybe to the right, that opens up a pop-up that shows me that form using a modal plugin. That's something that you can do. I did a live stream on that. It's a very flexible way of opening up forms. So if I show you an example here in my report, add new customer, you can see a modal plugin with a pop-up. If I go to my details of this customer, I have multiple pop-ups here that I can enable using a modal plugin window. And as soon as you hit submit, you're going to be able to see that stored. But we're not going to do that today. Just find a live stream that I did in the past, search for Caspio modal plugin, and you're going to be able to see that. How that's done. All right, let's create the data page. We need the submission form. And that needs to be based off of the logs table. And let's call this add log. Style blue. Localization English. Restrict access. Hit next. I need all of my fields in the form. Hit next. For contact ID. All right, so the submission form also needs to receive Oscar's ID that we passed in the URL. So we go to the advanced tab. Receive value, externally, CID, okay? Initially, you can leave that as a text field just so you can verify that the ID is passed into the field. I know for a fact that it's going to be passed into my field, so I'm just going to make that field hidden, okay? User ID, we're going to make that field hidden as well. Authentication field, and we're going to stamp the user's ID that's logged in into our logs table. And then for contact method, I don't have a lookup table now that I think about that, but we're going to create a very simple radio button here for maybe phone conversation or email conversation, or maybe just to flag it as a note. And then for notes, we're going to turn this into a text area. So it's a bigger box, and then we can adjust the width and height accordingly. Leave that the way it is, and on the following screen, instead of seeing a confirmation message, I just want that form to reload. Okay, so as soon as you submit the form will reload, but you will be able to see that log directly underneath. So let's finish. And let's go ahead and deploy that form. We're almost done. Copy that, go back to my template, and Why don't we paste that above the report? So we're going to have 3 data pages on this one. It's probably not going to look as good, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and now move that to the right, and let's see what it looks like. All right, so there's my form. You can section that off. You can add a heading above here if you'd like to make it look a little bit cleaner for the end user. So if I say, Oscar said they'll be faxing over the contract today. Something like that. We hit submit. The form is going to reload, but you're going to be able to see that log directly underneath. Okay? And now I can just continue, blah, blah, hit submit. I can continue adding, and I will be able to see the most recent log first. If I go to a different contact, let's say we go back to manage contact, somebody other than Oscar, let's say Megan. Remember, I'm going to pass Megan's ID in the URL, so the related data pages are not going to filter any of that information because the report down here is trying to display all the logs that belong to this ID. And that ID doesn't belong in my logs table. So even if you go back to your logs now, you will see that ID doesn't exist inside a logs table. We only have Oscar's ID inside a logs table. Okay? All right. The next data page I'm going to create very quickly for us is the history log table. We talked about that before, but I need to create my trigger. So if I make an update to my contact, I want to display all the historical updates on the front end, on the web. So maybe, I know my look and feel here is not the best. Maybe we display the history underneath the contact details. So we're going to have a tabular report that shows all the changes that I'm making inside this update form. And now that I think about it, when I hit update, instead of seeing a confirmation message, well, let's see what it's going to look like. Okay, let's build that data page. But before I build that data page, I need to create my triggers. So on the contacts table, we go to triggered actions, create the triggered action, and we use a Blockly framework for this in Caspio. Let me just check one thing on my end. To perform actions based on insert of data, update of data, or delete of data. In this case, I want to perform the action on insert of data and update of data. And I want to be able to insert into my history log table. Okay, so we click on the gear icon, select the data from the inserted table. No need for a conditional logic here, nothing conditional. Conditional is if something happens, only then copy to my history log table. But I'm not doing anything conditional, so we're going to just say remove the where clause and just move that into the trash can like that. So it's a very, very simple trigger. It's basically saying if you insert and update something inside a contacts table, I also want to insert that information in the history log table. And then you're going to select your fields one at a time. Unfortunately, it's one at a time like this. Okay, so these are my fields from the history log table, and I need to map those out now with the fields from my contacts table. And all you really have to do is click on data, click on field, drag this over here, and just link that back to your, map that back to your contact ID. Okay, and instead of clicking on data each and every time, you can just right click and duplicate and just snap that in place, user ID to user ID. And you just have to take a minute here to map out the fields. I'm not going to do all the fields. Let's just get down to the maybe phone number field to speed things up a little bit here, but you get the idea. Title. I'm actually going to do the status too, because that's my field that I can update on the front end. So we have status, we have file update, and first and last name. So let's come back here to status. Okay, and one more for follow update. Oh, that's date created. Sorry, follow update down here. Here we go. So let's just save it. Let's call this Excel copy to history log table, something like that. Save and enable. All right, so we have the trigger. It's running in the background, okay? But I'm going to quickly build my data page based off of that history log table so that I can display the history once I make that update. So let's build a data page. Reports, let's go with maybe the tabular format based off of the history log table. View contact history. Same style, blue. same localization English, restrict access, hit next, RLS. And no need for searching because I just want to display the history. Hit next. I'm not going to filter based on any one of my fields, but on the results page, I would like to know which one of my employees made that change. What are the changes that were made? So we can include all these fields, even though it's not going to look as good because there's too many fields. Let's just remove title because we're not really making changes for those fields. We're going to keep the status field because I'm making changes to first name, last name, status, and follow update. But if you are making updates to the other fields, you can include them in your results page. That's not a problem. Okay, we're going to hit next. Definitely no editing on the history log table. Keep this the way it is. Let's display 25, and I want to be able to see the latest update first. And no really need for details page. So we're going to hit finish. And let's deploy our contact history data page. Copy. And like I said, we're going to just paste it underneath the contact details. Okay. Let us reload. Move that to the right. And refresh. Okay, no records found because that table is empty. But if I make a change to this account, let's just say Megan with no H. And let's just say, the problem is that it doesn't have Megan's original information inside a history log table, because usually I would set that up in the beginning, but when I moved my Excel file to my Caspio table, I didn't have the original entry in the history log table. So let's just see what this is going to look like. So Leach, maybe with another H, and we're going to keep it as a lead and hit update. Okay, record updated successfully. Here's my history log table. I'm just going to refresh the page so I can see the details view. So there is the change that we're noticing here. User ID, I'll show you how to change the user ID to the actual name in just a second. But I just want to revert back to what I had before so that you can see how we track these changes. So this is the customer now. So there's my second update here. I'm going to reload the page. And now you can see the history of all the updates that are being done. You can either display that for the employee, or you can have an admin level permission. When they log in, they're going to be able to see all of those updates. It's up to you how you want to organize that. And then, in order for you to display the user ID, John Doe's information here, because he's the one making changes, you really don't have to include this field here, because the way I've set up this application, he's really going to be the only one who's making changes, because I'm using RLS on the contacts. Yeah, I should have done this a little bit differently, where you can see other employees making changes to the contact information. So I apologize for that. I should have scoped that out a little bit better in the beginning. But in any case, if you would like to swap out the ID with the name, if you go back to your relationship screen, and this is the relationship between the log or the history log table and the user ID. So this relationship here, the user ID and the history log table. If you right click and edit, you can choose to display, okay. So I only have the first and last name inside this table. I don't have a full name. That's why it's always helpful to include the full name in your tables if you have names, because I could have selected full name here and that would display my full name inside the logs report. But I'm just going to use first name just to display John's name. Okay, use display value on the data page, hit save, hit OK, and now when you refresh, you'll see John's name show up down there. That's why it's helpful to have a full name, because it's a bit more unique. You can have multiple people with the same first name. But again, you don't really need this column because John is really the only one who's ever going to be able to make updates. So there's really no need for that. All right. I'm going to show you one last thing today before we go, which is very quick and simple. It is the task. I want to send an email reminder to myself or to John 1 day before. You can do an hour before, but today we're going to set it up as a 1 day before the follow update to remind me, hey, you have to follow up with this person tomorrow. So we create a task. You can do it on demand. We're going to configure this to run daily. And you can run this task at midnight. I think that should suffice for what we need. And for the action, I want to send an email. Okay. And I would like to select that. So let me see, do I need to join my two tables? Let's see. I need the email from the user table, and the follow-up date is so I need to join my user table to my contacts table here inside the task. So we need to join these two tables and interjoin between the log contacts table. So we're going to join. Give me a second. Interjoin from the contacts table to the user table. So we're going to join them based on the user ID field. So user ID to user ID. Okay. So select from the contacts table and join with the user table. The reason why we want to do that is I need to grab the email that I need to send to the user, which in this case is John Doe, and I want to send that the day before. Okay. Where? So now we need a little bit of a conditional logic here. We're going to remove this. And we're going to use the date. So let me just take a look. Yeah, so we're going to use the date comparison here. So difference in. So difference in days. Again, you can do hours, you can do minutes, it's up to you. But we're going to do days between the two comparison dates. So the first one is going to be the follow-up date. So we need the field follow-up date as soon as we find it. And we need to compare that to today's date. So for the date field, you're going to use the timestamp. And just leave that the way it is, and we want that to equal to 1. So basically what you're telling the system to do is run this task daily and send an email if the difference in days between the follow-up date and today's date equals to 1. Okay? And then we have the verified email. You can also verify your own email inside the settings up here if you'd like. If you have your own email extension, you can verify that email. And then we're going to now plug in all this information. So to the email of the user, not contacts. Here's the user's email. Move that to the right here. Subject line, follow-up, reminder. And then you can say things like, hi. And then we can insert these parameters as fields. So hi, first name, user first name, which is John. And you can configure your email. You have a follow-up tomorrow with contact's first name, or you can just now use contact's full name. Okay. And now when you save and enable, so send daily email reminder day before follow-up. Save and enable. And now this is going to run in the background behind the scenes, and every time the day before the actual follow-up date, you're going to get that email delivered to your inbox to remind you, hey, you have a follow-up with this contact. You can log into your application, and let's say my contact was with Sam Baker. I can go to details, and we had our conversation, Sam and I. Why is this not going to my details page? Oh, because remember what I said earlier, that HTML block now exists in two different places. So we just have to copy that same code inside this report as well, along with the managed contacts, because we have that HTML block in two different places. Very simple fix. If you go to manage contacts, all you need to do, navigate to your HTML block. Just copy that. Not all of that, just this. Copy that. Let's go to follow up today. Edit. HIPAA, yeah, Caspio, yeah, we do have a HIPAA compliancy. Yep, we do. So just check with our team. If you call in, we do have a lot of healthcare organizations using Caspio for HIPAA compliance, and just paste that over here. Finish. And now on the front end, I can access that from the dashboard page. So if I go to Sam Baker, everything pertaining to Sam Baker from related tables will be shown here because it's all connected using this ID that we passed in the URL. Okay. Oh, except for the history. So let me think for a second why the history is not displayed correctly. Did I not filter based on contact ID? I don't think I did. Good. We caught that. So let's go to the history log table. That's a rookie mistake. So we need to filter based on contact ID, the history log as well. Receive value. CID. See, no matter how many years you've used Caspio, Always comes down to a little tiny mistake, user error. So we're going to hit finish. And now when I refresh, you will see no records found. However, if I go to the other, which is Oscar, I believe, has 2 updates. Was it Oscar? Was it Megan? Well, oh, Megan. So if I go to details, we'll be able to see the history log for Megan. All right. That was exhausting, but believe me, a simple application like this, just to build the prototype and the workflow, shouldn't take too long as you get used to the platform. Thank you guys for sticking around for so long. I appreciate your time and willingness to learn. We host these sessions every Monday, learning something new about Caspio. We've actually had over 50 of these live streams now. So if you just Google, if you go to YouTube and you look for something specific, maybe you were hoping for, you'll be able to find. We have tons of videos on other topics as well. But usually these classes on live stream will involve more advanced topics. They're typically for customers and also prospects. But if you want to attend our training classes, they're completely free. You can sign up for a basic session. They're each 1 hour long, intermediate, and advanced. If you want to go through the boot camp of learning how to use the platform from start to finish. And then we have pre-recorded training sessions if you'd like to learn. If you don't want to attend the live sessions, we have those available. And then we have the live stream every Monday. And today's was how to turn Excel spreadsheets into a web app. Stephen, thank you. Linking Ventures, thank you so much. I hope to see you guys again. Again, these are hosted on Mondays at 10 a.m. So if you do swing by, say hello. I am exhausted. That was a lot of talking. So I don't have much of a choice. But hopefully it wasn't too rough. We had a little bit of a mishap there in the beginning with that 503 message, which scared me. But we were able to resolve that quickly. Thank you, KK Stability Mark. Thank you so much. Hopefully you found this informative. I'm going to let you guys go. I'll keep the chat running a few more minutes. I'm going to close the session, but the live chat will be open for additional 2 minutes. And then if I don't see you, best of luck. If I do see you, and if you guys decide to give Caspio a try, go for it. I think you'll find it very easy and intuitive to work with as long as you put in the time to learn how to use it. All right. Thank you so much again. Have a good day. Have a good rest of the week, and hope to see you again. Bye-bye.